2 years ago. You were on our debut event. I suppose the question that everyone in the room wants to know is, how do we make Snapchat work for brands?
Great. So thank you for inviting us. Really a pleasure to be here. Let's just talk first about what Snapchat is, and we'll get to how brands can activate on the platform. Basically, 5 years ago, Evan and his friend Bobby were, just like everybody, young people, millennials, using internet and social media the way we normally use it. And the biggest challenge was that everything they do and is posted online is saved. In a way, they felt that their online personality is being judged based on what they share online. And to them, that was a problem, because they know for sure who they are now is not who they will be in a couple of years from now or 10 years from now. That's point number one, where they saw a big opportunity and a big kind of gap in what millennials want. As well, they realized that the way people are communicating by time is becoming really visual as we go. Before, I would text you in the morning and say, hey, what's up, right? Now, most probably, I'll send you a snap or a picture and then show you the office or whatever I am, and then put a filter on the top of that. And to them, this is where Snapchat came up. And to them, in the beginning, it was a way for people to communicate without the pressure of what's communicated being saved. So it's more communicating memories that are moments, not necessarily big events in their lives. And the second one was allowing people to use the camera in the day-to-day communication between friends. The camera was a key tech for them that allowed them to launch Snapchat. 8 or 10 years ago, the camera was a piece of hardware that helped us all save memories in our lives somewhere with the intention of sometimes coming back to see them, right? Now, it's a piece of software that is connected to the internet that allows us to communicate on a daily basis by the hour. And that's a huge opportunity for us at Snapchat, and I think for every player in this industry. And then people started snapping. Those snaps disappeared in 24 hours. And then by time, we started realizing that millennials actually loved the concept because they felt they're in control. They felt that they can express themselves because they're not judged. They're more free to communicate. They kind of play with it because the camera gives you a lot of opportunities out there. And as well, they started being creative by doing that. And by time, we started learning from those users and what do they need. We learned that those people are loving the concept of intentional consumption, which is I consume what I want to consume. I tap when I want to consume. Everything on Snapchat happens when a user tap. You don't, under any circumstance, get shown content to you or anything without you intentionally tapping. So from that time till now, Snapchat is what it is now, which is a camera platform that allows friends to communicate together with the intention of expressing themselves or being spontaneous in the moment or playing with their friends, be it their kids or friends or family or whatever, and as well now learning about the world. When we came to think about brands, there was a fundamental philosophy in the company that believed in the need of creating brand experiences for mobile. From the beginning, not adapting something that worked offline or on traditional media into mobile. And you'd see that thinking in the company across the board, on the consumer side and the brand side. The way we create brand experiences depends a lot on the successes we've seen on the consumer side, and then allowing brands to take advantage of those learnings. There are 3 ways a brand can be involved on the platform. Snap, so a brand can actually create 10-second snaps. They're full screen, audio on, and they are skippable, which is a very important part of our business. Then users can choose to swipe up, which is another key learning we learned that people learn by time. And then when they swipe up, they can do a lot of things, including registering in an e-commerce platform, or see a full video, or actually read an article, or install an app. So that's one. It's your video product, sound on, full screen, and audio on as well. The second way is filters. Filters are one of the new kind of formats and tools we created to allow people, as they use cameras, to add context, fun context around it. So when you snap a moment or a feeling, you add a filter on the top to define more where you are or how you're feeling about that. When I joined Snap, I remember the first day I was kind of going through the product, somebody told me people use branded filters on Snapchat more than they use our own organic filters. I was like, okay, this is a little bit salesy. But like a little bit into it, I actually believe in it now. It's actually true by numbers first, but it makes sense because think about it. If what people do most of the time on Snapchat is snapping moments and feelings along the day, if I feel energetic now and like feeling the energy coming up on stage, and I'm going to say that on Snapchat, who's better to give me a really, really cool filter? Is it a Snapchat designer or Red Bull? Right? Of course, Red Bull will be way more capable of defining that moment and that feeling and giving people a tool to define that moment. The third option is my most favorite and the most playful is the lenses. So the lenses are our way of adding more impact and tools on the camera that allows people to play. Many people actually use, just to define it, a lens is a technology that captures the face. And we add augmented reality on the top of that for people to play with this lens. You all know the dog face and the rainbow and the stuff. So we did a very good job, I think, in getting people trained on that behavior and actually playing with it. A lot of my friends and people I know, actually, they play with the lens without necessarily posting it. You just like, your kids are next to you, just play with them. That's why the biggest metric we look at is playtime. And by time, we allowed brands as well, who are actually fun, and they want to be fun. They want to be on consumers' faces, literally. And it worked. We had like our first execution globally was Taco Bell, and it had 250 million views in one day, right? So we had a playtime of 30 seconds for some lenses for brands. 30 seconds, somebody playing with a lens with the brand on it, on your face, on your head, on your eyes. One thing that was really, really cool that was launched just 10 days ago is, in addition to the lens being a tech that captures the face, now you can add impact and augmented reality impacts to the word. And I don't know if you guys used it. By the way, how many people here use Snapchat? How many people use Snapchat every day? Yeah, this is a key component for us, is allowing people to every day waking up in the morning, being curious, what's the new lens today, right? What is new on the filter side? So it's a snap video, it's a filter, and it's a lens.
And interestingly, you talked around the fact that obviously you were designed and built just for mobile platforms. One of the key problems, not just in the Middle East, but in the globe, is the fact that adoption of kind of mobile-first strategies from brands is quite difficult. How are you kind of going out and educating brands, I suppose, is one way. And what sort of sectors from brand perspective are taking it up? Because obviously all the features are very exciting and very different, and you want to make sure that you're creating that longevity for a brand.
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, there is a challenge now in terms of how brands can take advantage of that platform shift to mobile, right? Since 5 to 8 years, we've been talking about that platform shift from traditional media, and I can look at my friend here, Mazen, from NBC, into smaller screens. And that shift now is at a very mature stage. We've seen a lot of numbers that proves that. And actually now we're talking about mobile-only consumers who actually consume only on mobile. The challenge there is how can brands be part of that experience? How can you create content for that experience? And we can talk for the whole day about that, but I mean, I can focus on one point that drives majority of the challenges we all face, be it agencies or content creators or advertisers or even platform owners, is the challenge and the direction has been so far in so much focused on adapting what we know worked in traditional media and display and fitting that into a smaller screen. And that is the stage we're in at. There's a huge scale of people on mobile, and we're still trying to adapt as much as we can without creating for the platform. And that period we're in now is extremely similar to the period 50 or 70 years ago when there was a shift from when TV came up. If you read much about it, or if you're old enough to live that period, or actually you saw Mad Men, it was, TV was booming, viewers were getting on board, people were using radio and print ads to put on TV. And that happened for almost 10 years, and then people realized that they have to create for the platform, and then a whole industry was created for that platform, right, that thrived for the last years. I think with mobile, we're exactly the same. We're exactly in that stage where there's a huge amount of people on the platform, and it's increasing engagement. People are watching content and consuming content on mobile only. So there's a realization that we need to create for the platform, not adapt to the platform. And I think Snapchat is, to me, I mean, I'm biased, but I'm going to still say it because I believe in it, is one of the really impressive successes in that area. Why? Because we created a consumer experience that took mobile as a first indication of how we should create content and how we should provide services to people. We realized that camera is a key component in how people will communicate moving forward, number one. So going from saving moments in my life to using the camera in communication. And imagine in the future the opportunities around camera being part of all the interactive activities amongst people. I don't know why in 10 years from now I cannot purchase through a camera, right? The camera will continue to play a bigger role in how people consume. That's one. So the importance of camera into that. The importance of control in the mobile environment. We saw the mode presentation around the attention span, how people want to consume content. The example that Pepsi had where you just see the print ad and then adapt it to the mobile screen. We realized that you'll need to give the fact that people own a piece of technology that allows them to consume content through a mobile phone. They feel they have control, and you need to respect that, right? And people, if they want to skip an ad, they should be able to skip an ad, right? And there's no, I cannot put any science or psychology behind forcing somebody for 3 seconds or 1 second or 2 seconds to see a piece of content until they see what they wanted to see in the first place, right? This is to us a major philosophy in the company. So number one is camera. Number two is the intentional nature of the platform. People tap on the platform on Snapchat. Now, like on Snapchat, if you don't tap, nothing happens. So if you keep seeing the same and you stop, the snap will keep looping, or the ads, until you tap into it, or your battery goes away, or you faint, right? But intentionally, and when people intentionally do stuff, you get their attention, right? So intention is equal to attention in our case. The third point was learning. First time I used Snapchat, I was like, what is this? This is really difficult. And I didn't understand it quickly, but by time, I got used to it. Now I go to Instagram, I start swiping, right? And I realized, actually they did swiping, I heard a couple of weeks ago, but before, I unintentionally, I started doing stuff that I was trained to do on Snapchat. And then there's how you evolve as a platform based on signals you get from people.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that evolving side of things is interesting. There's two questions first. I think, how do you create content within Snapchat for a brand that actually resonates and engages? Because there's so much content there. How do you create cut through? What are the kind of key tips, if you had to give them, on someone looking to do a campaign across Snapchat? What are the key tips in making that content resonate? Yeah,
so we talked about not to adapt content that worked well and squeeze in a screen. I think a similar approach should happen when you plan a campaign. your objectives as well to what you want to deliver on the platform should be different. I'll give an example. I talked to a lot of our partners in the last couple months around if my snap is 10 seconds, so what's my completion rate? Our kind of message to our partner and working with them, we want to start realizing that people on those platforms do not complete. If the average session on mobile is less than 30 seconds for any consumer on any platform, you cannot expect them to give you 33% of that on your own as a brand, right? And it's not bad. It's not bad news. You just need to adjust your objectives in a way that delivers that objective across the platform. So the concept of cumulative wins versus one win. Win to me is only if the user completes my ad. That doesn't work on mobile. Then you're never going to succeed. And you're going to be always frustrated that nobody's completing, and then you're going to put media under pressure, and agencies, why are you not getting my completes? It's so expensive. But when you start realizing that this seconds is a way for you to say your message and give your message in a way you can win across those 10 seconds. 47% of an ad recall on a 10-second Snap ad, 47% happens in the first 3 seconds. So if you wanna, instead of doing on TV, which works very well, you build up your story and then you show your brand and then your message, you should do exactly the opposite on a 10-second Snap or a 10-second video ad. You should say who you are, what's the most important thing you wanna say, and then keep trying to have them attached to the brand. So if you pass through that brand uplift in the first, you're already winning. So start cumulatively winning across those 10 seconds. Then you show your message. Then you get them attached. And then towards the end, get them to swipe up to see more content and engage more. So we work a lot with advertisers into adjusting how their objectives should be delivered across the platform. And more importantly, how do we measure against it? I saw the panel where marketeers were talking about their frustrations. And one of the things that came up, I've been in the industry almost 15 years, and I've always had this, at least in the last 10 years, around what is engagement. Like brands always push that message to us and say, I used to work for Yahoo before, and I would define engagement in one way. Facebook would define it, and I agree with them. It's frustrating. But I think Snapchat has a really different approach by going to the brand and saying, what is engagement for you? Right? Instead of me defining what's engagement on the platform, how do you define a brand, a consumer interacting with your brand? Where do you think that level of engagement that will lead to your uplift or purchase intent? And let's find a way to measure it together. So instead of, again, bringing all those measurement metrics and mechanisms to a mobile platform that's so small, we should actually measure in the way people interact on those platforms.
Absolutely. And do you have a set of measurement up? You're working with brands, media, and other media owners to come up with, and agencies to come up with a measurement scheme that will work across. Yep. One of the big things we see is obviously the current duopoly, globally even, between Google and Facebook, and people being kind of restricted to those measurements. So is yours more of a collaboration from the off? I
don't think so. I think the approach has been so far around. There's enough scale on Snapchat, right, that allows us to measure on the platform and allow us to work with brands and agencies to deliver really lucrative and sophisticated measurement capabilities on the platform itself. In Saudi, there are 8.5 million people who just wake up in the morning and open Snapchat every day, right? And that gives us enough scale to be able to measure against that. And when a brand, I'll just give an example, and this is actually a great example around measurement and sometimes how do we link to offline. Valentine for this year, this is the first time Snapchat operates this year in the region. And one of the things internally, early on this year, we were thinking, do we do Valentine on Snapchat in Saudi? Like our organic filters and our emoticons and bitmojis and those things. And it was a discussion, like, is it culturally relevant? Is it important? Will people be engaged? Will there be a PR impact? And then after a lot of discussion, we decided, you know what, we're new. Let's just do it, push the limit a little bit and see how it goes. And when Cartier came and said, our audience are on Snapchat, and can we engage with them on the platform? We told them, you know what, we're testing, just come test with us. We had a filter that had a message that said, "How far would you go for love?" And then it was a nice Cartier branding, and there was a love bracelet in there. I was actually in Riyadh on the 14th of February. It tells you a lot about my Valentine plans. But wherever I went, I would see, especially females, telling me, "This is an amazing filter. We're using it." Went back to the office, asked Farima and the team. I was like, "How is that going?" He's like, "Hassan, this is booming. We think something is wrong with the reports." Just long story short, this filter was used in one day 1.6 million times. 1.6 million times in 24 hours. And it was used 152 million times, viewed. We had people from the retail shops in Riyadh and Jeddah calling Cartier, telling them people are coming to the shop, showing them the filter and telling them, "Can I see this?" And Cartier has been doing very similar activities in the last couple of years on Valentine. This is the first year they do something a little bit different, which is the filter. They had 150% increase in search keywords around the keyword love bracelet. So we come here and say, okay, we have those consumers. Let's just measure further. How many people remember the love bracelet? How many people have the intent to purchase it? And then we link that to offline. We invest a lot of resources and money into working with third party to actually allow us to measure that beyond what happens. Of course, in addition to allowing brands to track through third party, everything I'm talking about now. So through DoubleClick, all those filters we do and video snaps can be tracked through a third party.
And I suppose one of the other questions I wanted to ask is around the audience. Obviously, it's a very young audience. How do you look as you go to scale and you start to drive business? How do you kind of appeal, or do you not ever appeal to a slightly older audience that are kind of the heavier purchasers for brands? You know, the guys who are slightly more affluent.
Yeah, I think that's a perception that we're trying to work out with. More than 70% of our consumers in MENA are between 18 and 35. Right, and that's the kind of affluent audience you're talking about. And the highest growth area are the people between 24 and 35, right, and then 35 to 45. So I think globally, if I'm not mistaken, that 50% of our audience is in that level. So I think there are two factors here. People who were 17, 18 5 years ago are now in that 24 bracket, and people like me got on the platform really late. The adoption, in my case, is because I was interviewing for Snapchat, but for my friend's case is because they understood the platform really, really late. So we're actually really pretty well covered, especially in this part of the world, around the age brackets. I mean, especially in Saudi. I used to work for Yahoo before, and when I go to Saudi, I was challenged. So you have to prove the Yahoo platform. I actually look forward to go to Saudi now and work with our partners there.
Wonderful. And I don't want to hog all of the questions because it's quite rare to have a Snapchat speaker on stage anywhere in the world. So who would like to put forward a question? Someone must have one out there. Come on, guys. There we go. There's a question just in the middle there. Have we got?
Has to be Nadeem.
He's had this question all day. He's been waiting for you. Poised.
It's a really simple question. The spectacles that you guys launched, I think they're called Specs. I'm not sure what they're called. How's that doing?
I mean, you would know it did amazingly well. Spectacles was a test for us, and US-based test, and I think it delivered beyond what we expected it would, and it showed again back to the camera focus. We are a camera company, and allowing people in a simple way, and I put two lines under simple way, be able to use the camera and communicate and make it part of people's life has a huge opportunity. And a spectacle was an example of that.
Is it going to extend into sort of fashion brands like, you know, Ray-Ban taking it on, adding that, making it a...
You'll have to wait and see.
All right, cool.
Any more questions out there, guys? Ah, yes, another one just there.
Hey, so as we are seeing, there is like competition like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, all owned by Facebook, ironically, are kind of ripping off Snapchat's abilities and capabilities, like kind of imitating what Snapchat is doing. What kind of steps and opportunities do you see yourself doing in the near future to keep yourself different and the platform of choice for this type of content?
Yeah, this is a great question, unexpected. I think what we sometimes forget, there's a fundamental difference between Snapchat and many other platforms, most of them you mentioned. And it's worth explaining. People go on Snapchat, especially in this part of the world. It's a friend-to-friend platform. It's a closed, private community where I feel free to communicate freely because I'm not going to get in trouble or I'm not going to be judged. So the intention here is just to have fun with friends. Whatever we do in the platform is within that piece. The broadcasting component of Snapchat is big, but it's not the core focus of the company. The core focus of the company is making people's relationships more rich through the camera and the fun part of that, and visual and as well playful. People have spontaneously fun together through the platform. And other platforms is different and good as well. People do other good stuff like, why do you use a hashtag on Instagram? To be discovered. That's exactly the opposite of what people want to do on Snapchat. People want to have less amount of people to do. So I think for us, is the success of the story feature is a testament that we're in the right track. People use stories a lot on Snapchat, and people on Snapchat, not because of a feature. There is the brand, there is the vibe, there is the reason what I like. People use iPhones not because it's good with picking up phone calls, right? People use iPhones because they love the brand, they love what it represents, and they love and that's the most important thing, the continuity of the innovation of what iPhone is. And that answers your question. I think that if we will react, and we'll not react, but our strategy has been always continue to innovate, and then people continue to be part of the experience. And I think with the innovation pace we're seeing at Snapchat, I don't see competition yet in that far.
Punchy, I like that. Great way to end. Well, let's give a round of applause to Hussein. Thank you very much.